Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda N. Although sometimes it may feel as if there's nothing left to explore, there's still some pretty obscure mysteries out there. That's what my channel is all about, exploring the unsolved, the unknown, and whatever lies in between. Some of my videos may be a bit more broad and general, others specifically focused on one topic. I'm all about whatever mysterious stuff catches my attention at the moment. Today, for my first video, I'm talking about the lost city of Atlantis. Could it actually exist? And why or why not? Well, first, let's explain what Atlantis really is. Not the underrated movie version, but as a real place. It was Plato, the philosopher, who first told the story of Atlantis around 360 BC. According to National Geographic, the founders of Atlantis, he said, were half god and half human. They created a utopian civilization and became a great naval power. Their home was made up of concentric islands, separated by wide moats and linked by a canal that penetrated to the center. The lush islands contained gold, silver, and other precious metals, and supported an abundance of rare, exotic wildlife. There was a great capital city on the central island. Because Plato is such a widely known name and so highly regarded, people have taken him at his word to this day. The story of Atlantis is a common theme among media and myth, whether Cyprus is using it to promote visitors or documentaries claim to have discovered the place. But why do we take Plato at his word? Was he the only one saying this? Well, I hate to burst anyone's bubble here, but the story of Atlantis was exactly that, a story. Plato used Atlantis, as well as other myths, as a teaching tool. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Psychology states, "For Plato, we should be living according to what reason is able to deduce from what we regard as reliable evidence. This is what real philosophers like Socrates do. But the non-philosophers are reluctant to ground their lives on logic and arguments. They have to be persuaded. One means of persuasion is myth. Myth inculcates beliefs. It is efficient in making the less philosophically inclined, as well as children, believe noble things." In other words, they were well-crafted stories used to teach the general public. In 360 BC, science isn't where it is today. It was harder to prove things, to demonstrate the consequences of people's actions. Not that we're great at that now, but still. Great philosophers, like Plato, like Socrates, didn't always use logic and reasoning. And that's where we get confused. Today, great thinkers and psychologists are associated with, logic and reasoning and sometimes fact. They're completely separate from storytellers. I love Stephen King, but I wouldn't call him a philosopher, a man of logic and reasoning. So when we hear philosophy and Plato, we assume he meant it. We assume it was real. It doesn't help that, until a few hundred years ago, the church was the law. There wasn't really a separation of church and state, and the church has a history of not always being fond of science. At least not then. So, to better send a message, rather than using fact and science, Plato and other philosophers would use fiction. The legend of Atlantis is a story. Just that, a story, about a moral, spiritual people who lived in a highly advanced utopian civilization, but they became greedy, petty, and morally bankrupt, and the gods became angry because the people had lost their way and turned to immoral pursuits, or Circes. As punishment, he says, the gods sent one terrible night of fire and earthquakes that caused Atlantis to sink into the sea. But before you click away all disappointed, we have to answer the question, does this mean it's impossible? Even if Atlantis originated as a story, does this mean it can't exist in our oceans today? Well, though there's been debate about where Atlantis would actually be, live science argues. Plato, however, is crystal clear about where Atlantis is. For the ocean there was at the time navigable, for in front of the mouth which you Greeks call, as you say, the Pillars of Hercules, there lay an island which was larger than Libya and Asia together. In other words, it lies in the Atlantic Ocean beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the Straits of Gibraltar at the mouth of the Mediterranean. Larger than Libya and Asia together. That's a pretty huge landmass we're talking here. And with all the tech we have, live science states it would be inconceivable that the world's oceanographers, submarines, and deep-sea probes have somehow missed a landmass larger than Libya and Asia together. I'm inclined to believe them. It does seem a bit far-fetched. As much as I want to believe in Atlantis, it's sounding less likely as we go. But if it's true that somewhere around 80% of the planet's ocean is unexplored, well, could they be wrong? Is there any way a smaller Atlantis could be out there in a different location? Well, now we're starting to get into the realm of possibilities, even if it does seem unlikely. Some have speculated that Atlantis sunk into the mid-Atlantic. It was swallowed by the Bermuda Triangle. It could be anywhere. But the question arises, could it be a thriving city? The answer to that is a pretty simple no. Regardless of what your thoughts around evolution may be, humans don't evolve gills when they hit the water. We drown. We're humans. That's, a thing. Even if people did go down with a city that had been smited by the gods, as Plato put it, they wouldn't have survived. They would have drowned. But as for the city itself, well, that much is possible. This story does have some basis in reality, even if Plato didn't know it. Scientists have theorized that somewhere around 5600 BC, 7,600 years ago, civilians used to thrive around the Black Sea's shores. However, when it was flooded, those citizens were wiped out. A once thriving society lost to the sea. Similar events have happened in India as well, as land and climate changes over time. National Geographic reports 3 billion-year-old zircon crystals were found on Mauritius, a beautiful volcanic island in the Indian Ocean. But the volcanic island itself is only some 8 million years old, so how is that possible? The ancient minerals found on the island's beaches were likely ejected by volcanic eruptions from far below. Their age suggests the zircons once belonged to a continental crust much older than the recently formed island itself. This means that deep underneath the surface of the Indian Ocean and right under Mauritius, there was once a small continent. Geologically, it's a continent, not geographically, so it's not as big as Plato described, but it's absolutely been lost to the seas, and begs the question, how many other submerged continents there may be? After all, this one was only found a little over 3 years ago. That tells us there's more to explore out there. In 2004, also off the Indian coast, a 2,000-year-old temple was discovered as well. The ruins are located close to the popular tourist destination and UNESCO World Heritage Site, Mamallapuram, in the southern Indian Ocean of Tamil Nadu. Just before the devastating 2004 Asian tsunami hit, the ocean receded several hundred feet, and tourists reported glimpsing large stones and boulders in the distance. A 10-member team from the National Institute of Oceanography, NIO, surveyed the area from March 10th to 18th and found the ruins of 6 ancient temples that were thought to have been swallowed up by the ocean as sea levels rose. The team, comprising of divers, geologists, and archaeologists, found a 10-meter wall, a flight of stairs, and carved blocks of stone on the ocean bed in 27 feet of water. It's believed they were submerged somewhere around 925 AD after a tsunami. Undoubtedly, this was an important trade route way back in its day. Though it doesn't quite date back to Plato's time, this was mentioned in ancient Greek writings as an important trade route, so in a way, Plato sort of predicted the future of this Indian city long before it actually happened. So, with all that said, I believe it's safe to assume that while there is no great thriving city occupied by mermaids or Atlanteans beneath us, that doesn't mean a beautiful city without its occupants doesn't exist. These ruins are their own small Atlantis, and given the nature of how the Earth moves and changes over time, I'm sure there's even more Atlantises we will find in the future. I mean, who knows? Maybe where you're sitting right now will be underwater one day and be its own Atlantis too. That's all I have for you today, but thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please do hit that like button and subscribe because I'm brand new here and could really use that help. I'm hoping to just have some fun, put more content out there for you guys. I'll have social medias soon and a new video will be up next week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!